Hey friend, welcome back to the Lifestyle School podcast. I am your host, Hope Plack. If you have been trying to lose weight, build muscle, or just eat healthier, chances are you've heard this message loud and clear lately. Eat more protein, right? Protein is having a moment right now. It's been having a moment for a hot minute. High protein snacks, protein coffee, protein bars, protein, literally everything. I saw protein soda yesterday at Costco. I was like, wait, what? And listen, protein is important. It matters. It plays a huge role in your health, your metabolism, and your ability to build muscle and feel full. But here is the problem. No one is asking the question, is there such a thing as too much protein? Okay. And that's what we're going to be looking at today because there is. And if you've been doing all the, quote, right things, hitting your protein goals, eating clean, working out, but your fat loss has stalled, this might be one of the things that's going awry on your journey. So today we're going to break this all down. We're going to talk about how protein is actually digested and used in your body, what happens when you eat too little protein, what happens when you eat too much protein, how insulin resistant completely changes your protein needs. And this is like a key distinction. And I'm going to give you some real numbers, what you should actually be aiming for depending on your goals, your age, and your body. And I know I'm just going to say this from the onset of this episode. There's a lot of controversy over how much protein you should be eating. You'll see some like wildly high numbers, and then you'll see numbers that aren't. And as always, right, we have to look at nutrition as an individualized thing. And so if you try something and it's not working, it's probably because it's not the right number for you, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You're not inherently broken. You're probably just doing the wrong thing. And we're also going to talk about how fasting fits into all of this because that piece gets overlooked, I think, a lot, and it matters more than most people realize. So before we jump in, as always, a quick reminder, I'm not a medical doctor. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended as medical advice. Always consult with your doctor or qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your health. You guys, I say that every week. So sorry if I sound sarcastic while I'm saying it, but it needs to be said. And then again, before we jump back in to today's episode, I want to remind you guys that the online supplement store is open. If you want high quality supplements that you can actually trust, that is where you can get them. Every product in my store is third-party tested for quality and purity. They are manufactured in GMP certified facilities, which is unfortunately not something you're guaranteed when you're buying supplements from Amazon or grabbing them, from your local health food store or GNC. These are the same professional grade products that I use every day and that I recommend to my clients. And it's a really easy way to support the show, the Lifestyle School podcast. So, if you are in the market for supplements, head over to my website, www.hopeplackcoaching.com. In the top right corner, you'll see the link to the store. You can create an account with the code 104567. And, if you want to know exactly where to start when it comes to supplements, what my recommendations are, you can head over to episode 43 of the podcast, where I talk about my core 4 supplement recommendations and why they matter for metabolic health. So with that, guys, let's jump into this semi-controversial topic of protein. Okay, let's start with the basics, guys. Protein is not just about muscle. I think it's easy to think of protein as just the thing that you eat to, quote, tone up, to have muscle, but protein is involved in almost every happening in your body, which is actually really cool. It helps build and repair tissue. It's used to create hormones. It's used to make enzymes that drive chemical reactions. It plays a role in your immune system, and it even impacts your brain through neurotransmitters. It's one of the biggest reasons people are told to eat more protein. One of the biggest reasons why people are told to eat more protein is because of satiety, right? So protein helps you feel full. It stimulates that hormone that is all the rage right now, called a GLP-1, and also peptide YY that signals to your brain that I'm satisfied and I've had enough, and then you stop eating, right? So Yes, protein is very powerful, but the key is to understand how your body actually handles it so that you can make informed decisions on your protein needs, right? So let's start with protein digestion. And I want to be clear, it's a process. It starts in your stomach, where your stomach acids and enzymes begin breaking it down into smaller pieces. Then it moves into your small intestine, where it gets broken down further into amino acids. And these are the building blocks, right? We've talked about amino acids before. From there, those amino acids get absorbed into your bloodstream and sent to your liver. And here's where it gets important to pay attention. Your body does not store protein the way it stores fat or carbohydrates. Okay, there's no protein storage tank. This means that every time you eat protein, your body has to decide three things. Do I use it right now? Do I convert it into something else, or do I get rid of it? Okay. And that decision really matters. It's a really important piece of the puzzle. So let's quickly cover what happens if you're not eating enough protein. Okay. If your protein is on the low side. If you're not eating enough protein, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to feel it. And might see that on your physique. You may lose muscle, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Your recovery from your workouts will suffer. You're likely going to feel more hungry because you're not getting that satiety signal, and your blood sugar may be more unstable. And over time, you can start to see things like your hair thinning, weaker nails, and overall poor tissue repair. So this is not like a eat less protein message. I want to be super clear about that. You need adequate amounts of protein. And, frankly, part of the reasons why I don't like plant-based diets is because it's really hard to get enough bioavailable protein. But now let's talk about the other, like the flip side, because this is where, I think things start to go sideways for a lot of people, especially in this day and age when every influencer on the internet is screaming at you like eat more protein, like, and then every product that you see at the store is like high protein cereal, eat my high protein birthday cake recipe. I saw this dietitian post on Instagram recently, and it was like, we have lost the plot. This gal apparently made this recipe about how she got like 70 grams of protein in her birthday cake. And I just laughed. Like, you don't need 70 grams of protein in your birthday cake. You don't need necessarily to have protein in your birthday cake, right? Like, there's like an obsession of getting protein into literally every little thing we put in our mouth, which is a little weird, right? So, we need balance. And let's talk about what happens if you eat too much protein, which maybe likely there are a number of people out there who are really trying to work hard towards their goal, their weight loss goal. They want to be toned, they want to feel strong and ripped, but they're like, why is my body not responding? Because this is like a just like a frank truth that I don't think you're going to hear many people say, but I'm going to say it. It might be controversial, but more protein is not always better, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Your body can only use so much protein at one time. Once your needs are met, once you've supported muscle repair, hormone production, all of that, your body has to do something with the excess protein, right? And one of the main pathways is something called gluconeogenesis. And this is where your body converts protein into glucose. So even if you're eating low carb, if your protein intake is super high, your body can still be producing a lot of glucose. And that matters, right? Because glucose triggers insulin. And here's another piece that people don't realize. Protein itself stimulates insulin. Not as aggressively as carbohydrates, of course, but it absolutely does. So if you're eating large amounts of protein throughout the day, especially spread out over multiple meals and snacks, you may be keeping insulin elevated more than you think, okay? And what does elevated insulin do? Well, if you listen to last week's episode, you know the answer to this, and it blocks fat burning, okay? So you can do all the things, quote, right, and still not lose fat. And that is so frustrating if you've ever been on that side of things, right? And here are a couple signs that you can, kind of monitor for to know if maybe you're overdoing protein, maybe you're eating too much protein. This feels a little ironic. but you're constantly hungry, even though you're eating a lot. Guys, I'm going to be so honest with you. I'm a health coach. I certified nutrition. I've been doing this a very long time, but I have been on my own journey, and I'm always curious to see if something different would work for me, or will work. Like I like to experiment with myself, and with like all the like I'm what I'm telling you today, I've known for quite some time about protein, but even still, I was like, well, maybe if I do more protein, things will be different, and I just wanted to try it, and I went onto a super high protein diet, and I was shocked by how constantly hungry I was. Um, Considering how much protein I was eating, right? It seemed very like counterintuitive because of the stimulation of GLP-1 and peptide YY, et cetera. And the fact that, protein is like very satiating in and of itself. But and I wasn't doing enough of other things, but just like way too much protein. And it was a sign to me of like, okay, this is just not, this is not working. And so I have even done too much protein. And this was the one that I really noticed. When it comes to signs of maybe you're overdoing protein, I was so hungry all the time. Next one is your digestion feels heavy or off. Another one is your blood sugar is creeping up. And then number three, like you just feel stuck or plateaued. If you've just, been plateaued, everything else looks pretty good from a number standpoint, might be too much protein. And this is where, you have to stop thinking in extremes. It's not high protein versus low protein. It's about appropriate protein. It's about the amount of protein you as an individual need, not what some influencer on the internet needs that you don't know half of it of what's going on in their life, in their physiology, right? That's why we can't look at someone on the internet and be like, oh, they're doing this and they look like this is what I should do. We got to make it bio individual, right? So I have to take it here, and we have to talk about insulin resistance when it comes to protein, because my target audience is I want to talk to the people with insulin resistance, because this was me, and I didn't understand how the insulin resistance played into all of these different factors. And then I couldn't figure out how to lose weight, and it was so frustrating. So let's talk about, that I think a lot of people miss when talking about this topic of protein is the piece of insulin resistance. And if you are insulin resistant, your body's already struggling with elevated insulin levels, and that means that your baseline is already higher than it should be, right? And like I just said earlier, protein stimulates insulin, whether it's just eating it or if you have extra via the process of gluconeogenesis. So when you add in things like frequent eating, high protein intake, maybe even some carbs on top of that, you're layering on more insulin stimulation. And if insulin stays elevated, your body is not going to prioritize fat loss, plain and simple. And this is why some people feel like they're doing everything right and still not getting results, because, they're following general advice, and that doesn't take their metabolic state into account. So if you're insulin resistant, you often do better with moderate protein, not excessive protein. Like we don't need protein in every little morsel of food that we eat, and higher fat for satiety. So moderate protein, high fat, and then strategic fasting to bring down insulin. And this is where personalization really matters. And this is essentially the formula we use within my Lifestyle School for Weight Loss course that you can find on my website. But I teach you how to do this in a way that feels easy, hopefully effortless, so that you can make it a lifestyle for optimized metabolism, optimized metabolic health, and optimized weight loss. And so let's make this really practical, guys. How do you actually know if you're eating too much protein, right? Here are some things to look for. If you're hitting high protein targets, but fat loss is stalled, it might be a sign. You feel like you're always thinking about food. There's a sign for you that maybe you're eating too much protein. Maybe, you're eating lean protein, but never feeling fully satisfied. That's a good sign. And then, your energy feels inconsistent. You should feel energy all throughout the day. Or maybe you're prioritizing protein so heavily that fat intake is so low and you're constantly hungry, right? It has to be a balance. So a simple experiment is maybe slightly lower your protein, increase your healthy fats. So we're thinking things like olives, avocado, olive oil, avocados, maybe like fattier cuts of meat or fish, right? And pay attention to hunger and energy and fat loss. And you're going to be surprised by what your body is going to tell you because your body will tell you so much if you just slow down enough and put your phone down and start paying attention to what your body's actually trying to tell you. So, I want to talk some numbers because I think people really like to have like something a little bit concrete. So I'm going to give you some generalized numbers maybe to go off of. Don't live or die by these numbers, guys. Just general baseline. And then play with them. Find out what works for you, right? What does your body respond well to? What fits where you are at in your lifestyle? Because everyone is different, right? You know, some people are lifting really heavy weights multiple times a week. Some people are a little bit more sedentary. Some people are older. Some people are younger. There's a lot that plays into these numbers. So these are not extreme. They're realistic, general baseline for protein for someone who's trying to, maintain muscle, maintain body weight would be for women, zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.8 grams per pound of ideal body weight. Okay. So if your ideal body weight is, 150 pounds, you'd multiply that by zero point 0.6 all the way up to by zero point 0.8. And then that would be like the grams of protein target. For men, it's zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.6 pounds per, or sorry, zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.9 grams per pound of ideal body weight. And then if you're trying to lose fat, especially for someone with insulin resistance, it's going to be just like very slightly lower. Okay. Not even a whole point. So 0.6 to 0.75 grams per pound for women, and then zero point 0.7 to 0.85 grams per pound of ideal body weight for men. So almost exactly the same. And then if you're trying to build muscle or if you're just like a really active individual, again, you're going to need more protein, right? And again, this is like a more moderate approach that we're taking, but tailor it to what works for your body and what you feel like you really thrive off of, right? You are, you're the only one living in your skin. This is what I tell my clients. And you're the only one who can be like, oh, I feel really good at this amount, or I don't, and I'm not getting the results I want. If you're trying to build muscle for women, go up to zero point 0.8 to 1.0 grams per pound of ideal body weight. And for men, you're going to go up to 0.9 to 0.1 grams per pound of ideal body weight. Okay. I know those are a lot of numbers, but here's the catch, guys. Especially when it comes to trying to build muscle, and this is really important, and I can't stress this enough. If you're not progressively overloading your muscles, you don't need more protein, like a lot of extra protein. More protein without stimulus doesn't build muscle. It just gets converted into something else. I'm going to say that louder for the people in the back because I think some people are walking around thinking, oh, if I just eat more protein, I'm going to have more muscle. It's like, guys, it doesn't work that way. You have to stimulate your muscles. And by stimulate, I mean like work them hard, not like those little 5-pound weights and, air squats. I mean, you got to do some progressive overload. You need to be challenging your muscles. So yes, you need to progressively overload if you're going to try to up your protein, go higher and higher and higher. And if you're not, especially if you have insulin resistance, I would say be so careful. Okay. And then, I think age really matters when it comes to looking at protein as well. If you're under 45, you're typically more metabolically flexible. Maybe you can tolerate a bit more variation. If you're over 45, protein becomes a little bit more important for muscle preservation, right? But that doesn't mean eating protein again all day long. It means being intentional, prioritizing protein at meals, which you would do whether you're young or old. Avoid that constant snacking, support muscle and resistance training. Balance is still the goal. Okay. And this is a point that I think cannot be overstated. Not all protein is equal. Okay. Not all protein is equal. Food sources matter. So think meat, eggs, fish are going to be the more bioavailable, more satiating forms of protein, where ultra processed protein bars and shakes or sodas, they're easily overconsumed and often come with additives that don't serve your body. And so quality matters just as much as quantity. Okay. So if it's both between, having a ton of protein, but you're doing a bunch of ultra processed foods, even though it's like high protein, it's quote unquote like clean brands, it's never going to be as good as like actually just going and eating that steak or that fillet of fish or those eggs, right? So, really prioritize protein from real food sources because that is going to get you where you wanted to go so much faster. And then when it comes to fasting and protein, this can be a real game changer. Okay. So when you incorporate fasting, you lower insulin, right? You give your body a break from constantly processing food. And during that time, your body becomes more efficient, which is really cool. So you become more insulin sensitive and you tap into stored energy, and your body becomes better at using the protein that you do eat. And this is why you don't need massive amounts of protein when fasting is a part of your lifestyle. Your body is already in a more efficient fat burning state. So instead of constantly feeding protein all day long, you're eating intentionally in an eating window in amounts your body can actually use. And I mean, I feel like after I had my third baby, I was like a prime example of this. Once I was done breastfeeding at about 7 months postpartum, because like my milk supply dried up at that point, I really started. I was training up until that point already, but I hadn't been really doing much fasting because it's just not. When I should say I wasn't doing much fasting, I wasn't doing more than like a 16/8 fast some days because you want to be careful when you're trying to maintain a milk supply. But mine dried up, which it has done at that point for multiple of my pregnancies. And so then I got into my more therapeutic fasting because I wanted to build muscle. I wanted to lose the extra body fat. I'm one of those people while I'm nursing, I cannot lose all of the baby weight. It just like does not go away. Relatable moment. I know I'm not the only one out there. So 7 months postpartum, I started doing my fasting, and I was shocked by the gains that I had in my weightlifting while I was simultaneously losing body fat and losing weight. Like I got really lean, but I also got a lot stronger simultaneously, which I feel like isn't something you see every day. And I was doing the moderate protein, high fat approach, minimal carbs. And again, this is me. I am not everyone. But if insulin resistance is part of your story, that combination of moderate protein, high fat, and fasting, once you kind of titrate the amounts that work well for you, that you feel good eating. And honestly, I didn't track any food. I wasn't like writing down and tracking my calories or macros after my third baby. I was just, eating till I felt satisfied. I was leading my meals with protein and fat, and then, adding in some fibrous foods, whole food based. And I mean, I was honestly shocked by how effective it was. So here's what I want you to take away from today's episode. Protein is powerful, but more is not always better, guys. Okay. No matter what everyone on the internet is saying. The goal is not to chase a number. The goal is to support our metabolism and to work with our body and not against it, right? That's like kind of the theme that I feel like comes up every episode. Everything we talk about is we want to work with our body for weight loss, not be fighting against it or like white knuckling through, right? Because that's just not sustainable. And for a lot of people, especially if you've been stuck, the answer might not be more discipline. It might not be more restriction. It might just be adjusting what you're already doing into a smarter way. And hopefully, as you listen to these episodes, you're getting some ideas of things that you can tweak along the way on your weight loss and health journey to go about it a little bit more effectively and a little bit smarter, if that's good grammar. So, with that, guys, we're going to wrap this up. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who's out there trying to do all the right things, but not seeing the results they want. And if you're ready to take this deeper, this is exactly the kind of thing we walk you through step by step in my Lifestyle School for Weight Loss course, as well as my one-on-one coaching program. You can go over to my website, www.hopeplackcoaching.com, to check that out. I do have some spots open right now for coaching. And if you haven't already, guys, subscribe to the show, leave a comment review, share it with a friend. That's how you can really help support me and get the word out about this podcast, so that I can keep doing it. Indefinitely, because I do love doing it, but there are some overhead costs, and it does take a lot of time. So with that, guys, I hope you're having an awesome week. We'll see you next week on the Lifestyle School podcast.